When I move energy, the key is to engage what I call my ethereal muscles, the parts of the mind that actually move the energy, that get stronger as I practice with energy. Energy healing research has been going on for 50 years. I routinely hear, I don't believe in energy healing, and the only reason I'm trying this is because of the guarantee. And they get the same results as everyone else.
Do you struggle with pain? What if there was a way to ease chronic pain without relying on medicine or surgery? Welcome to Superstates, Practices of Transformation. Superstates explores the intersection of trance states with personal growth. And in each episode, we talk to world-class experts, to industry leaders and revolutionary thinkers who share the latest information and tools, along with their own personal stories to inspire you on your journey. In this episode, I talk with Mike Sententia, founder of Healing Lab, about energy healing and how it helps people with pain. We explore the science, clear up some myths, and look at what the future holds for this approach. Ready to explore a groundbreaking path to pain relief? Here we go, transforming pain through energy healing with Mike Sententia. Welcome to Superstates. Today I have a special guest, Mike Sententia. Mike, welcome to the show.
Joshua, great to be here.
Awesome to have you here, Mike. Just to get started, share with me and with the audience what it is that you do and how that can make an impact in the world.
So I do energy healing for chronic pain. So arthritis, fibromyalgia, frozen shoulder, things like that. And so many people that I see, they come in with just this debilitating pain, right? 8 out of 10 pain with every step for a lot of my arthritis clients. People, unable to lift their arm up and just in excruciating pain when they have to do the dishes, right? And it's not just the daily pain. It impacts sleep. It impacts mood. It impacts all of the mental states, right? And so I work with folks. The goal is always to get their pain down. And I can talk about the science of energy healing. I've been working with energy for more than 30 years. I've been doing it professionally since 2015. And uniquely, everything that I do comes with a money-back guarantee. So there's no upfront payment. You come in, you feel the results right away. We send you an invoice after. If you like the results, pay the invoice. If you don't, which makes it really easy for people to try it out. Because I understand energy healing can be a little weird for folks. So really excited to be here and talk about it.
Great. Well, you kind of hinted at this, but I find that most people have their own journey with whatever it is that they end up doing. So share with us your story. Like, how did you get here? What's your backstory?
Absolutely. So it started when I was a kid. A friend who loved fantasy novels talked about feeling energy from trees. And I tried it and I felt some tingling, and I went to the ocean and I tuned into the energy and I felt this whole body, frisson, or it's just tingling all over. And I had a bunch of experiences like that. Now, how much of that was energy and how much of that was imagination? I have no idea. I was 12, right? But it got me started exploring this and learning ways of sensing energy, learning how to get into the mental state that let me tap into the energy. The term that I use is mental posture. And then in my 20s, for like a decade, I was just kind of feeling energy and messing around with it and curious about what I felt, right? And then in my 20s, I was partnered with a woman a bit older than me who had chronic knee pain. She used to run, she had to give it up. And whenever we'd go dancing or she'd garden or whatever, her knees would ache. And I started reading the energy of her knees and adjusting it to look like the energy of my healthy knees. And her pain would come down. And then next day she would garden or dance or whatever, and her pain would be back, and I'd do it again. And after 3 months of doing this basically every day, her knees weren't aching anymore. And she was able to run again for the first time in years. And I had a bunch of experiences like that. Later, she developed chronic hives, and we worked together to develop some healing techniques. By that time, she was a nurse. And after the third technique, she woke up the next morning for the first time in a year without any hives. And I had a bunch of experiences like that with other friends also. A friend with chronic insomnia, who started, going from 3 to 4 hours a night to 7 to 8 hours a night. Bunch of experiences like that. Then in 2014, Lisa was her name, the partner who became a nurse. We had broken up and we lost touch, but I learned from a mutual friend that she had cancer. And we reconnected, and I became part of her care team and would fly out each month to help take care of her and just, ease some of the burden on everyone. And in doing that, I also started developing some more healing techniques, working with her based on, sort of the medications that she was taking and what changed in her energy when she would take her painkiller, based on the energies that I've been using for sleep. And her pain came down and she started sleeping better. And after 6 months, she finished her second round of chemo and she still had cancer. And a couple months later, she died. And I grieved, but also I began to dream of what we could do if it wasn't just me working with a nurse to understand the physics. If I could work with real medical researchers to develop and advance these techniques. If we could develop more reliable techniques. Part of it was just reconnecting with her. She always believed in what I did even more than I did, right? Because I was seeing the results and she was feeling the results. And later that year, I started Healing Lab, initially to do the research, and then eventually pivoted to realizing the world doesn't need another researcher chasing after a tiny pot of money. What the world needs is an industry partner to fund and drive the research. And that became the mission for Healing Lab, is to grow into that industry partner, to help make energy healing mainstream, widely accepted, covered by insurance, help get this help to the millions of people who live with chronic pain every day, and see what we can do for them.
That's, I love how you have created a way, created kind of this organization to help to heal people. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
What was it that kind of inspired that piece for you?
Initially I thought I'd be doing the research, right? And actually, initially, I was really overwhelmed with doing any of this, right? I had to ask myself, like, how confident am I that the results I've been getting from my friends are actually from energy and not from placebo, right? I mean, what's more likely, that I found something that's not in the laws of physics that's helping people, or that there's some placebo going on, right? And a mentor of mine who does research, she was like, well, how much of the research have you read? I was like, I kind of just expect it to be like a bunch of case studies. Like it's so widely dismissed. I don't expect very much. And she was like, well, why don't you read it anyway? And that was a good idea. So I did. And I was blown away. There was not just case studies, there was research on energy healing on inanimate matter. It affects the infrared reflectivity and pH of water, right? Water doesn't know what you're doing to it. It doesn't believe anything. There's no placebo there. It affects cells in a petri dish. You take E. coli and you heat it up until it's almost dead. That's called heat shocking. And then the E. coli that gets energy healing recovers, and the E. coli that doesn't dies. That's Beverly Rubik. And there's been similar research on human and animal cells that are starved and then recover better with energy healing. Cells in a petri dish, right? They don't believe anything. There's plant and animal studies. You take mice with cancer, you give them energy healing. The cancer does not metastasize as much. That's Gloria Granowitz. You take plant clippings, you put them in water. The plant clippings that don't get energy healing all die within 30 days. The plant clippings that do get energy healing all live for the full 90 days of the research. That's Melinda Connor. And so all of this, like, wow, it's not just people. It's all these things where placebo just doesn't even come into play. Right? Those plants don't know what you're doing to them. And then we get to the placebo-controlled trials that show good results for energy healing as far as pain and stress and anxiety. I was like, wow. So this isn't just something I've been messing around with. I don't need to take this leap of faith that like I found this thing. This is a thing that's showing results in all sort of research that, you know, I'm doing also. And it gave me the confidence to go out and do this. And I also realized, talking with these researchers, I talked with Professor Durfalu. She's a professor of nursing. She did a randomized controlled trial for knee osteoarthritis, which is one of the things that I do a lot of. She did it on $30,000, which I know sounds like a lot of money, but as far as research goes, it's nothing, right? You think about what a pharma study costs, right? And I realized that these are researchers who have this real passion and this really strong belief in energy healing and this drive to help people with it. And they just need a little help getting it funded and moving from asking, does energy healing work, to asking, how does it work? What's the mechanism of action, right? I have this thing that when I apply a certain energy to clients' nerves, for so many of my clients, their pain is dropping in like a minute, right? Like I do the thing and I say, test it out. And that quickly, they're feeling the results. Well, what's happening physiologically to those nerves, right? Is it a change in reuptake? Is it a change in potentiation? Is it a change in how much neurotransmitter they release? I have no idea, right? And I'm not the guy who's going to figure that out. But I want to work with the researchers who know, how do you set up those studies? How do you understand what's happening physiologically to a nerve when a medication kicks in? And how can we apply that approach to energy healing to understand what's going on, make better techniques, and start to answer these mechanism of action questions that everybody has?
So you mentioned that you can speak to the science of this. So it sounds like some of these studies have been completed. So why don't you share with us, like, how does this work?
So the research has been happening since the 70s. So there's like 50 years of research on this. And nobody knows how this works. And I think that's one of the really important things to like admit up front, is we don't have a mechanism of action yet. I can't tell you in terms of physics or chemistry or biology what's going on here. And I've seen people try to explain energy healing in terms of contemporary science, talking about radio waves and electromagnetism, talking about quantum physics. And when you talk to the scientists who really, not an energy healing person, but a quantum physicist or a radio wave researcher, none of that works. This stuff works by laws of physics that we don't currently understand. But here's the thing. Every few generations, humanity encounters a new phenomenon that's missing from the science of the day. Right? 100 years ago, that was quantum physics. Everybody knows about the bizarre behavior of photons. What most people don't realize is quantum physics is what gave us transistors, the building blocks of computers and phones and the internet. And those are pretty good. 100 years before that, when people thought that, when alchemy was a science, and people thought that fire was caused by phlogiston, that wood contained phlogiston, and the flames were the phlogiston leaving the wood, and that's why stuff weighed less when you burned it, because the phlogiston left. Now, you probably never heard of phlogiston, because, it doesn't exist, but alchemy was a science, and that's what they thought at the time. And Anton Lavoisier started weighing different materials, and he discovered that magnesium weighs more when it burns. Now, you and I know that's because magnesium oxide is a solid, so the magnesium has picked up oxygen atoms, and it weighs more. But half those words didn't exist back then. In fact, that research is what led Lavoisier to coin the word oxygen. It's widely regarded as the dawn of chemistry, and chemistry is pretty good. 100 years before that, when people thought that diseases were caused by demons and bad air, breakthroughs in glassmaking led to the first lenses. And Antony von Leeuwenhoek, he was a weaver. He bought some lenses to do quality control on his thread to make better cloth. And then he started using them to look at blood and saliva and swamp water. And he was the first human to see single-cell organisms. He called them animalcules, like animal molecule. And it was a long path, but this is what led to the germ theory of disease in modern medicine. And antibiotics and vaccines are pretty good too. And so every few generations, we encounter this phenomenon that's missing from the science of the day. And then when we come to understand it, it leads to world-changing technology that is the basis for the modern world. And when we understand energy healing and how it works, it will lead to similar breakthroughs in the physical sciences in the next century of technology. And that's why I do what I do. Now, all of those revolutions, the term is scientific revolution, of coming to understand it, coming to accept it, they typically take 100 years or more. This takes longer than a lifetime. And so energy healing research has been going on for 50 years. And if it seems like nobody quite accepts it yet, that's actually exactly where we're supposed to be in the history of scientific revolutions. We are supposed to be still gathering the evidence, not knowing how it works, and just grappling with all of those questions. It's totally normal.
And I guess as you're talking about this, it makes me think of like Chinese medicine, which has a strong energy element to it. And it's been around for quite a while. And clearly it works, or it wouldn't be around as long as it has been.
I know, right? We have all these things that work that we don't fully understand, whether it's in the realm of energy healing, whether that's Reiki or Chinese medicine or the techniques that I use, whether that's in the realm of hypnosis, where nobody really knows how it works.
Yep.
And yet it helps people every day. And I think it's wonderful to be alive at a time when we are exploring these things that help people every day and learning how they work so we can make them more effective and get them to more people.
So as you meet people that are interested in energy work, like I'm sure if it's anything like what people do when they come to me for hypnosis work, they have certain expectations or beliefs around what they think things are supposed to be like. They're almost always wrong. So what kind of misconceptions do people come with around energy work?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. I would say the number one thing is people think that you have to believe in energy healing for it to work. And I have a lot of data at this point. Most of my clients start as skeptics, right? I routinely hear, I don't believe in energy healing, and the only reason I'm trying this is because of the guarantee. And they get the same results as everyone else. So for the client, it doesn't seem to matter what they believe. It doesn't seem to matter what their mental state is. I have clients who meditate. I have clients who are very mindful and tune into their body while I'm doing my work. I have clients who answer emails. I have clients who take a nap. I have to wake them up during the session because I need to test it out. But sometimes they just doze off because they get really relaxed, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to matter. I mean, I'm always looking for how do I make my stuff more reliable? Right? What are the factors that make whatever percentage of people not get results, right? And I really expected it to be, or a significant factor to be client beliefs, or, are they meditating during the session or something like that? No impact as far as I can tell. Now, as far as mental states, my mental state is very important. I need to be, the term I use is mental posture. It's engaging the right parts of my brain and my mind that move energy, which in the same way that if you imagine walking across the room or you actually walk across the room, the difference is engaging your leg muscles, right? When you do hypnosis, you can get people to imagine a thing and that creates a change, but that's different than physically doing the thing. When I move energy, the key is to engage what I call my ethereal muscles, the parts of the mind that actually move the energy, that get stronger as I practice with energy. And being able to get in that right state for doing that is key and is one of the first things that I teach my students.
Okay. And is this something that you find is important as far as the research that's been going on too?
It's really interesting. Most practitioners don't have a specific term for mental posture, but there is one really neat piece of research on this. So you remember that research from Beverly Rubik on the E. coli in the Petri dish?
Yep.
She actually had 3 cases, right? She had the E. coli that doesn't get any energy healing and it dies. But then she had 2 cases where they do. In one of those cases, the energy healer came in and did a session on a human and then worked on the E. coli. And that worked great. And the E. coli did great. In the other case, there was no session on the human first. The energy healer just came in and did their thing on the E. coli. And in that case, nothing happened. And what I think is going on is most people don't learn how to just like close their eyes and engage their ethereal muscles. Most systems of energy healing don't even have a specific term for the parts of the mind that engage energy. They talk about the unconscious. I find it's really useful to distinguish between the unconscious that like makes your heart beat and the unconscious that makes energy. But most systems of energy healing don't make that distinction. And so these energy healers had never learned how to consciously and intentionally get in just the right mental posture, just the right mental state for doing energy healing. They naturally did it when they worked with a human or a person they were working with. And they didn't do it when they only had the petri dish. Once they were in that state, they were able to stay in that state and successfully channel the energy to the petri dish. But if they never got in that state doing a regular healing session like they do every day, they weren't able to get in that state to work with the petri dish. And so mental state is so critical for energy healers to be able to tap into the energy that we're working with.
Okay, that makes I like how the science is showing that, right? That's a really interesting really interesting frame, that it's not necessarily that there's a state that you go into that is going to give you those better results. And it's also interesting that they weren't able to do that by just like giving the E. coli the energy.
Yeah.
They had to first work with a human and I imagine have that connection. Like to me, I would think that connection is a big piece of that.
Yes.
So there's lots of different kinds of energy healing out there. I've done Reiki 1 and 2. So I'm certified in Reiki 1 and 2, although I don't really do anything much with it, but I've done that. I also practice different some Qigong and Tai Chi. So there's energy movement in that as well, if you kind of know what the pieces of it are. Can you describe your process? Because it sounds like it's kind of a natural process that you essentially created. Am I right on that?
You know, I did develop it over the last 20 years. It is not a natural process. It's something that I've actually done a lot of like testing and trial and error and working on how to observe energy. The biggest difference between what I do and what most systems do, and particularly Reiki that you're familiar with, is a lot of systems of energy healing use one universal energy for everything. And this has the benefit that it makes it relatively fast to teach because you only need to teach what, it's one energy. But think about it. If your doctor had to give the same treatment for every single patient, regardless of what they had, it'd be really limiting, right? Somebody comes in with arthritis, somebody comes in with cancer, someone comes in with insomnia, they all get the same thing. Really limiting. So I take a different approach. I dial in just the right energy for each tissue involved in the condition. So when I'm working with, say, arthritis, I dial in one energy for the cartilage that's based on the energy of a child's cartilage. And it's designed to help the cartilage regrow. What we find is that after a year of working with me, people don't need me anymore for arthritis. I have another energy that targets when tissue is inflamed, it has a unique energy signature. So I have another healing energy that targets that energy of inflammation for the bursa and the cartilage. And then when nerves signal pain over and over, they learn to signal pain better and better. And that's what chronic pain is. And it has a unique physiology and a unique energy signature. And for so many of my clients, when I suppress that energy signature, their pain drops in about a minute. And so by dialing in just exactly the right energy for those nerves, I can get much stronger, faster, longer lasting results. Whereas if I had to use the same energy for all of that tissue, it would be really limiting. And so that's the biggest difference. And then it's been developed through one of the really great things for developing this, doing this money back guarantee. It's guaranteed for a month. If your pain comes back, 2 weeks in, I check in with people every week. And if their pain comes back, they get a free touch-up session where I read their energy and I see what's shifted, what's gone wrong that's made the healing energy stop working. And then I fix it. And let me tell you, when I first started doing this, I did not want to know that it didn't work, right? I wanted to think that my stuff was the best stuff ever. And it was really hard to reach out to clients and be like, hey, how are you feeling? Do you need a touch up? Do we need to debug this? But by doing that over and over, by seeing what made the energy stop working and figuring out how to get it working and figuring out how to fix that next time so it keeps working, it made what I do not just more reliable, but also more effective for people, and just work for a broader variety of people. It made it tremendously more effective. So yeah, it's something that I have developed through a ton of testing over the last 20 years.
Okay. What are some of the best types of challenges that people have that they come to you for? Like what do people look for you to help them with?
Yeah. I primarily work with clients who have musculoskeletal pain. So, arthritis, frozen shoulder, back pain, hip pain, things like that. Highest success rates there. I have quite a number of clients with neuropathy and neuralgia, things like sciatica, or similar pain that's shooting down the arm from a slip disc in the cervical spine.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I think it's also really important to know what a person doesn't do and to be able to share. Here's what I do. Here's what I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I have tried several times. Every few years, I get someone who has migraines. And I've never been able to get anywhere with migraines. I had one client where that day, the day of the healing session, her migraines came down, but then they were right back the next day. And so migraines is a thing that I don't do. And I think that's really important for, to know as a practitioner and for potential clients to know.
Yeah. So as I think about because the show is super states, trance states, and things like that, what it really sounds like is that's kind of that, what did you call it? That mental
posture.
Mental posture that you put yourself into. That is your super state, your altered state that lets you then tap into the energy, both of, let's call it like the fully healed thing that you're working through. And then you kind of tune into what somebody else is experiencing and shift that energy to match. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah. So like to develop the healing technique for nerves that are signaling chronic pain, what I did is I looked at in a bunch of my clients. I still do this whenever I'm seeing a new client, just to double check it. I look at the energy signature of the nerves that are signaling pain, and then I look at some nerves elsewhere in their body that aren't having chronic pain, and I compare those two. And I say, what are the unusual parts of this, the chronic pain nerves? What's the unusual parts of their energy signature that I need to adjust to typically suppress? And absolutely, but yeah, I don't normally go into mental posture in my podcast interviews, but because I know your super states, I figured that would be a really good thing to talk about. And one of the things that I don't know if you go into in hypnosis, but there's all of these different mental postures, right? Like when I'm writing an article and I get into a flow state, that's a mental posture.
Sure.
And when I'm like meditating and I'm just like really kind of aware of my body and letting my thoughts, just come and go, that's a mental posture. And then there's this other mental posture for actually working with energy. And one of the things that I've really liked about kind of having that concept and then practicing with it and teaching my students is we become able to be more intentional about what mental posture we get into, and getting into not just the state for doing energy, but the state for writing and the state for meditating and the state for relaxing more intentionally, which I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm hearing mental posture, but also like state of consciousness. It's kind of a similar idea here. because all those things that you talked about, like whether that's a flow state or a meditative
Yeah.
state, right? There's states of
Yeah.
consciousness or mental postures. I really like that frame that you just gave us there. If somebody was looking, like if somebody's really interested in energy healing and they wanted to find a healer, what
Mhm.
would you suggest they look for?
The number one thing is look for a money back guarantee. Right? People can have lots of certifications. That just means that they took that workshop and maybe put in some clinical hours. It doesn't mean that's going to work for you. The way you know it's going to work for you is you try it. And the way you get to try it is find someone with a money back guarantee. That's also how you know that they really stand behind the results. They're getting reliable results. They're able to build their business just on folks who love what they do. And here are 3 questions to ask them. First, ask, do you offer a money back guarantee? Right? Second, ask, how does it work? Right? What hoops do you have to jump through to get your money back? Because we've all bought something online and tried to get our money back, and it takes 20 emails in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
What you're really looking for is no upfront payment, right? That you're going to feel the results before you pay. So that way, if it doesn't work for you, you have 0 hoops to jump through. Just don't pay, right? The third thing to ask them is, has anyone ever gotten their money back? Or has anyone ever not paid? And the answer should be yes, because nothing works for everyone.
Right.
And if they're being honest with you, the answer is going to be, yeah, 5% or 10% or 20% of people don't get results. Nothing works for everyone. And you're looking for someone who'll be honest with you about that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not what they wish was true, right? They wish they could tell you that it worked for everyone, but it doesn't. So that's my advice for finding a great energy healer.
Okay. So what kind of results do you typically get?
So this is one of those tricky spots, because if I start talking about like people's pain comes down, that winds up being a medical claim. I'm not allowed to make medical claims.
Mm-hmm.
But the standard of success for pretty much all of my clients, and the standard of success that I hold myself to, is, did their pain come down? And if their pain comes down, I consider that successful. If their pain doesn't, I consider that not successful. And in particular, this is one of the things for all the energy healers out there. If somebody says, I think my pain came down a little, that doesn't mean their pain came down. That means they like you and they're being polite.
Mm-hmm.
If it worked, my standard for success is it smacks you in the face with how much better you feel, right? For so many of my clients, we're getting a 50% drop in pain. And that's kind of where I set my bar of what counts as success.
Okay. And as far as the different kinds of pain, I know I think I like to think of chronic pain like a phone that keeps ringing, and you know that it's ringing,
Yeah.
and it's still ringing. Have you ever worked with something that's more like a neuralgia that comes and goes, so it's not like an always on kind of a pain?
Yeah, definitely. I've worked with both neuralgia that does that, and just like joint pain that does that. One of the keys I find is being able to work with the person when they're having the pain. Because the energy signature of the nerves that I need to work with is going to change when they're in pain or not in pain. And I find that I get much better results if I can see them when they're in pain. We can test it out, right? We can make sure that it's working that day. I can dial in the energy just right for what's going on with their nerves and their body. So what I try to do is, when someone comes to me with intermittent pain, I'll schedule them and I'm like, hey, if you're not in pain that day, let me know and we'll reschedule you. And I usually have, a couple of openings in my day that are for if somebody needs a touch up or one of my clients needs an emergency session. And so when somebody has that intermittent pain, I can slot them in. They reach out that morning and are like, hey, Mike, I'm having a bad pain day. I'm like, great, I got 3:00 open. Can we do a distance session at 3? And that way I can see them when they're having the pain, and we can get them the best results possible.
Okay. And so you just mentioned something else that I'm curious about. You mentioned distant
work.
Yeah,
So that tells me that you can do this both online or in person. Is that correct?
I can. And it's still strange to me sometimes that the laws of physics allow for this to happen. So what a lot of energy healers do, and you probably know this from your Reiki training, is they will like focus on your image, right? They'll focus on your picture or your voice or something like that and send the energy. And I always ask myself, like, how reliable can that be? You know, these are, I mean, this isn't even like a picture that you held that now you've handed to me. This is like electrons that are going through the internet.
Yeah.
So what I do, I take a little different approach, and I make an energy connection to a business card. I have these metal cards done up specifically for this, so they last forever. So I make an energy connection, and then I mail it to you. And when it arrives in your mailbox, it still has a little bit of my energy in the card. It still has that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we have our session, you touch the card to wherever I'm working with, and I use my connection to the card to bridge a connection to you. And like I said, it's still strange that the laws of physics allow for this to happen. But people's pain keeps coming down, so I keep believing in it.
Sure.
And it's especially useful because let's say that I work with your shoulder, and you're like, hey, it feels great from here to here, but over here it still hurts. Okay, touch the card where it hurts. Let me get the right spot. It's super useful for targeting the right tissue.
Yeah.
So it's changed my practice. Yeah.
Okay, great. How do you, what are you looking forward to as far as the future of energy work?
I think the number one thing is right now energy healing has about 1% market penetration. 99% of the population thinks it's kind of silly. That's part of why I have the guarantee, because there's a lot of people with pain in that 99%, right? What I'm looking, acupuncture and chiropractics have about 10% market penetration. Both of them, some insurance plans cover. And I am really looking forward to having more people believe in energy healing, at least enough to give it a try, at having insurance cover it so that finances aren't a barrier for anyone to try this and get this help. And I'm really looking forward to getting this help to more people.
Yeah, it's important work. Mike, if people want to learn more about you and your process, what's the best way to do that?
Go to healinglab.org, that's .org. You can read up on what I do, how the guarantee works, all of that stuff. There's a video of me explaining it all, like a 2-minute video, and you can book a free consultation where I can answer all your questions and help you decide if Healing Lab is right for you.
Awesome. We'll make sure to to put those links in the show notes. And what is the one bit of wisdom that you want the audience to leave with today?
I would say anyone that wants to learn energy healing can learn energy healing. This is something that pretty much anyone can do. And it's a wonderful way to tap into this human facility that is not yet understood, but is one of the things we can do when we're in a super state. And I love sharing it with people.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, Mike. It's been a very energizing conversation.
Thanks for having me, Joshua.
Talking with Mike just gave me a new understanding of how energy healing can help with pain. And I really like his approach of bringing together ancient practices and modern science in such a powerful way. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, follow the show, share it with somebody who struggles with chronic pain. And for more transformational kinds of ideas, check out previous episodes of Super States. And until next time, stay curious, keep growing, and embrace your transformation.